what's happening from my perspective in the world. We have increasingly got into a world where individual companies don't compete against other companies, but networks of companies compete against other networks. Networks of organizations compete against other networks. Think about the implications. Any of you who have been in managerial positions ever been rewarded for some other company's success? Anybody? Nobody? Any of you measure a partner company's success? We live in a world where you can't succeed if your network is failing. And as managers and executives and students of management, we seem to have not grasped this idea that we live in a world where our companies, our organizations can't succeed if our partner organizations don't succeed. And we haven't yet made this the centerpiece of how we think about management. Questions, comments, reactions, thoughts, opinions, agreements, disagreements? Those books,
Well, if you think about the evolution now of how our people it's like,
yeah.
what we say, I'm not an expert, we say there's a place with a lot more connection. Depends on networks and partners, understanding how to
In what has happened in certainly the most advanced that has taken place in supply chain. However, it is still an us versus them attitude, and I'll talk about that a little bit more a little later. It's still an us versus them as opposed to what is good for my network. But yes, that is one area where we actually companies have been forced to make changes. Okay, so we talk about all of that. Let's talk about it. We'll come to that in a moment and we'll talk about it. Go ahead.
Also, there are experiences with outsourcing.
Yeah.
Whereas a company that's outsourcing with their department is outsourcing.
And again, in outsourcing, very well done outsourcing businesses, there's some of that is happening. But too often it is, where can I get the lowest price as opposed to where can I build the best network? We live in a network world and we're ignoring it. We're ignoring it exactly as we ignored the lean movement when it was hitting us in the face in the 1980s. And you know what? This has costs. This has real costs. There are two refereed articles written by two professors, Vinod Singhal and Kevin Hendricks, that got published in two good but obscure for most people journals that I think every CEO, every management team of every company should read. I'll just summarize the results of those two for you. What Vinod Singhal and Kevin Hendricks did was they looked at 519 companies on the New York Stock Exchange. And they focused on the day when the company announced a drop in a problem of some sort. You know, an innovation problem, an R&D project problem, a supplier problem, a customer problem, any sort of problem. And they looked at what happened to the share price over the course of a year. Overall, the share price has dropped about 10.2%. If there were customer problems, they dropped about 10.9%. If there were both customer and supplier problems, so truly a network problem affecting more than one company, then it dropped about 14%. And the share prices did not recover for a quarter. They then did something else. They said, you know what? The stock market is not very efficient. We were having this discussion, sort of this discussion a couple of us right before the session. And so they looked at a larger sample of companies, and now they tracked stock prices from a year before a problem was announced to 2 years after the problem was announced, so over a 3-year period. Okay? Here's what they found. Large New York Stock Exchange companies. Over this 3-year period, the stock price dropped 35 to 42% and does not recover. 35 to 42%. If I'd simply told you, stock price of company A prior to our fiscal meltdown had dropped 35 to 42%, and I asked you the simple question, who do you think was responsible? What would you answer? What would you answer? Who would you have thought was responsible for a 35 to 42% decline in stock price? Yeah, gee, I said before the fiscal crisis. CEO, CFO, those are the people you're appointing. But this is happening at the mid-management level. People running innovation projects, people running supplier projects, people running customer projects. And we are completely oblivious to this. And this data, by the way, covers about a decade. So it's very, very strong, very, very statistically rigorous. So why is it happening? I want to tell you that this has actually happened multiple times in history. I'm going to quickly take you through that, because there are some lessons in that would that actually affect what